thing in life is figuring out who you are and what you want to do for the rest of your life. It's a big decision.
Being successful in life is knowing what you want to do. Once you know who you are and you know exactly what it is you want to do, you get up every day and you grind until you get it.
I think if you look at most people right now, like if you went to any college campus anywhere in the world and asked these kids, what's your major and what do you want to do for the rest of your life? They'd be like, well, I'm taking political science, but I think I'm going to switch to this and that. They don't know. They're going to college because they were told that if they didn't go to college, they'd never get a good job, they'd never get this, they'd never get that. So these kids come out of college with an education that most of them don't use. One thing that I realized young is I didn't want to work for anybody else. I wanted to work for myself. So I knew that you have to become an entrepreneur and you have to start your own business. I did some paving early on in my life. That's real work. That's a real job. Like I was like 17, 18 years old. I felt like I had one foot in the grave working that job.
Sure.
And I knew I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. I also knew that I was young enough that if things didn't work out, I could always go back and pave roads and be a bellman at a hotel and things like that. That job was always going to be available.
Yeah.
So I took all the risks at a young age. If you don't take risks, you will never succeed. I wouldn't say that I was always ambitious. When I was a kid, I was your typical kid.
I came from a family with a single mom. My dad was an alcoholic and was never around, and when he did show up, you didn't want him around. You know what I mean?
I had a hardcore upbringing, you know. My mother used to tell me that I was gonna be just like my father and not amount to anything and things like that, and I was gonna be pumping gas into my friends' cars.
And then my mother, you know, she worked a lot, wasn't around, so me and my sister were home a lot alone. We had to clean the house and do all the stuff that you have to do when you're a kid. But one of the things I think about growing up alone is, you know, there's a lot of stuff that you have to learn on your own. But I honestly wouldn't change one thing about the way that I grew up. In no way, shape, or form am I bitter or I sit around and complain about, oh, this, that, or the other thing. If I didn't grow up the way that I did, I wouldn't be who I am today.
When I was 19 years old, I worked at a hotel. It was the Boston Harbor Hotel in Boston. I was standing in the lobby one day and I'm like, what the am I doing here? This is not me. This is not what I want to do. And I want to be in the fight business. And everybody told me at the time, which fair enough, is probably the dumbest thing anybody ever heard, that I wanted to be in the fight business. Everybody's looking for that job where you get great benefits, a 401k. You know, it seems like those are the type of jobs that everybody's looking for, and they get these jobs and they stay there for the rest of their life. But I was 19, I was standing in that lobby and I was just like, man, I hate this job and this isn't me. This isn't where I belong. And I know lots of people have felt that way before about their jobs. The difference between me and a lot of people is I got up and walked out. There was this guy in town, his name was Peter Welsh. He was a fighting legend, street and boxing. And, you know, not a dude you went looking for, but I went looking for him. And I approached him and I said, I know you don't know me and I know this is weird, but I want to learn everything that you can teach me about the fight game. I'll work for free. And at that time, this is in South Boston when Whitey Bulger ran Southie and all that stuff. It's a funny story, but his wife thought I was a Fed. He was my college, he was my sensei, he was my whatever you want to call it. That's what he was to me, and that's why I'm sitting here today, is because I sought him out. He said yes, and I learned everything from him. I love taking things that people think can't be successful and making them successful. When I was 26, I proposed to my wife, and I was getting married, and, you know, I'm gonna have a wife, and I'm probably gonna have kids soon, and you know, then you start getting sucked into all the things that people put in your head. 401k, health insurance, you know, retirement and all this other stuff. You know, typical young guy, you end up, you know, you have to get a job, you have to make money, and you have to do stuff like that. Because at one point when we got married, I went back and got a job again. I'm like, yeah, it's time to grow up. I need to be a grown-up. I went and got another job, and I was like, yeah, this grown-up shit. I can't work for anybody else, man. I'm going back to, you know, if you look at the landscape at that time and you say, yeah, I want to be in the fight business. First of all, what the fuck does that even mean? What does being in the business mean? And how's there money in that? And, you know, it wasn't just like wasn't what people considered a normal job. And I went out and cut these deals and built these gyms. And, you know, teach people how to box, whether it was businessmen, fighters, or whatever. Brian. So Brian over there, who is my security now, he was a kid. I trained him when he was a kid. So at the time, I had 3 gyms here in Vegas, and where we trained fighters and people, you guys like you could come in and work out. And I started representing some of the UFC guys. Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz were 2 of my guys, and I got into a huge contract battle with the old owner Bob Meyerowitz over Tito's contract, and then finally he flipped out and said, "You know what? There is no more money. I don't even know if I have enough money to put on another event." And screaming at me, and I hung up the phone. I was like, "Damn, all right." So I called the brothers. They were in Miami, the Fertittas, and I said, "The UFC's in trouble. I think we could buy it, and I think we should." So I connected Lorenzo with Bob Meyerowitz. They started talking, and months later, we owned the company for $2 million. Yeah. Nobody believed in this thing. When I say nobody, except for 2 guys, Frank and Lorenzo. That's it. Nobody else believed in this thing, right? What we wanted to do is come in and build almost like a league, a brand, like the NFL or Major League Baseball, and where there was actually value inside the brand, and bring all the fighters inside so that you could put on the best fights that the fans want to see. I feel like there's so much more to do, and this is truly my passion in life. It's like the Sphere. We're doing the Sphere. Why? Why would I do the Sphere? It's going to cost me a bunch of money. It's really challenging. Most people think it can't be pulled off, and you're looking at weird angles, different things going on inside other than the fight and all this other stuff. But yeah, I'm doing it because it's awesome and it's challenging and it's hard. And I think that if anybody can do it right, it's us. They knew me for a long time. I was a hard worker. I've been in the fight business since I was 17 years old. And I was the one that came to them with this idea. I had lots of ideas. They believed in it too. We started taking jiu-jitsu together, and we fell in love with this sport. I thought that this thing could be this big. I always believed this, that no matter what color you are, what country you come from, or what language you speak, we're all human beings, and fighting's in our DNA. We get it and we like it. And I knew that if we could package this thing the right way, deliver a great television show and a great live experience, that this thing could be big. I really did always believe that. You just never know if the timing is right. Do we have the right idea at the wrong time? You just had to get out there and present it the right way and get it on television. Now, when we bought it, it wasn't allowed on pay-per-view. Porn was on pay-per-view, but the UFC was not. That was the mountain that we had to climb. I got $37 million, man. As human beings, we're fascinated by who the toughest guy in the world is. It's always been that way from the days of the Roman gladiators. I always have this thing where I say I can throw all kinds of stats and bullshit at you about the UFC that's true and all these things, but here's something that I don't know if this is true, but it's what I truly believe, and it's what we built this company on. I believe that before a man threw a ball through a circle, before a man hit a ball with a stick, 2 men were put on this earth, somebody threw a punch, and whoever was standing around ran over and watched. Fighting is the first sport ever, and it will be the last sport ever. It will be around till the day we die, till the earth no longer exists. Tell me who the greatest cricket player on earth is. Nobody? Yeah, I didn't think so. Not one person's ever said, I know who the greatest cricket player is. But my point is, you walk anywhere in the world, everybody knows Mike Tyson. Everybody knows Muhammad Ali. Bruce Lee died in the early 70s. Does anybody in this room not know who Bruce Lee is? I'm 43, okay? When I grew up, there was Channel 3, Channel 5, Channel 8, and Channel 13, okay? If you called me, I had to be home to answer the phone. Because we didn't have answer machines, any of that stuff, right? You can go to the movies, you can go here, you can do this, that, you can do... There's a tons of things you can do. I have to convince you to stay home on Saturday. Not only stay home on Saturday, when you've been busting your ass at school all week, working, all the other things you got to do. You probably want to go out, meet some girls or take your girl out to dinner or go to a movie. I compete with all these things. Basketball's on, football's on. You know what I mean? All this other stuff that goes on. I have to convince you to stay home on Saturday and pay $55 to watch my event. That's what I have to do. That's my job in this business. And when you stay home, get all your buddies together and you sit around and you buy my fight for $55,
you better be entertained. Because if you're not, you know how hard it's going to be for me to get you the next time I have an event? It's not going to be easy. But that is what I do for a living. I put together fights that are compelling enough to make you stay home on a Saturday night, pay $55 for it.
I work just as hard now as I did back then. The difference between back then and now is I don't have to do a bunch of the shit that I don't really like to do, like budget meetings. I don't like budget meetings. So I get to pick and choose what I do these days. Back in the early days, you don't get to pick and choose. You have to be involved in everything. In the early days, when you start your business, you have these people who, when I hear them say, you know what, I want to work for myself. I want to create my own schedule and I want to do all the, if that's your thought process going into it, you're never going to be successful. You have to pay attention to every single detail of the business early on. You're involved in everything. There's no days off. There's no birthdays. There's no Christmas. There's none of that shit. I literally moved the birth of my second son for a chocolate elf fight. A chocolate elf fight coming up, and they're like, yeah, your son's going to be born on this date. And I'm like, yeah, that's not going to work. We're going to have to take him earlier. Yeah. They literally gave my wife a C-section and took my son early.
You're all in.
All in.
Anything you do, nothing happens overnight. It seems that way, but it's all hard work. I have been on planes, trains, and automobiles for the last 13 years, out selling the sport, getting deals done, getting doors slammed on my face. You name it, it's all happened. You know, we go out there, we make this thing work. The first season of The Ultimate Fighter happens, this thing skyrockets, starts to take off. So of course, the fight business is a fun business to be in. So everybody starts diving into this thing. Well, it's easy, right? Just throw 3 letters together and buy a cage and put on fights. Anybody could do that. So these guys go out, and the biggest mistake that everybody makes when they try to compete with us is they try to compete with us. I'm not out trying to kill other organizations. The only time you've ever seen me act like I wanted to kill an organization was guys who came out and talked smack about us. Those were the times. It was like, all right, you want to fight? We'll fight.
Anybody who is with me, has been with me, knows. When you're with me, you're with me. It's a two-way street. I'm not one of these guys that is going to roll over. It's like going through COVID. I wasn't laying any of these people. Some of these people have been with me for 20 years. We're going to lay them off? Mm-mm. This motherfucker will burn.
Yeah.
Before I would do that to my people. First of all, when you're losing money, everybody wants to point the finger at whose fault it is. And then when it turns around and you start making money, everybody wants to say it's me, me, me. And then you start having differences in opinions, and you see all these great things break up because of ego. Some of the greatest products, some of the greatest businesses, some of the greatest friendships, bands, and it's just completely unnecessary.
The worst thing that can happen if you try. If the day that I walked out of that hotel, right, and I went to do this, it doesn't work out, I can go back and be a bellman again whenever I want to. You can always go back and do that. The worst part is not trying. You have to try. Nobody's ever going to do anything without trying. When you get out of bed every morning, right, you get up out of bed, life is standing right there to kick you in the face. Ready, leg cocked, ready to go to kick you in the face. Because every day when you get up, bad shit's coming at you. And you got to get up and you got to fight through that bullshit every day. You have to. I've been where most people have been. I've been in the shitty job that you're just trying to pay your bills and you're trying to make ends meet. And you're miserable. You're doing it because you have to do it, because you have to pay your bills, because you need money. Once you break out of that and you find what it is you truly love to do, it's really not work. It's actually fun, and you enjoy every day of your life. And there were days, I went through this thing, I had really bad insomnia for a long time, and I knew a lot of people that would freak out and go crazy. I loved it. I loved having insomnia. My life was so good, I didn't want to sleep. I can't stand 3-day weekends. I hate 3-day weekends, man. I'm like, man, I want Monday to come again. That's how much I love what I do. That should be, if that's not your mentality every weekend when you're at home, like you're dreading Monday, man, stop. Stop and get another job because you're in the wrong place. That's not healthy for you. It was about doing something you love to do. How many people are sitting in their car right now or in their house or at work or wherever they are
and hate, literally hate what they do for a living.
That's why
I was that guy, but I had the balls to get up and walk out and go for it. 54 years old right now. Like that. I mean, it just fucking flew by. You think when you're young that you have all this time. You have no time. There's no time. I mean, one of the quotes on the wall in the gym in there is no tomorrow. From Rocky 3. There is no tomorrow. Fuck that shit. Let's get all this shit done today.
The first thing you have to do when you start a business is know exactly who you are and what is your game plan. You know, what are we going to do? First year is where you're looking. What are we going to do first year? You make it through that first year and you're still alive. All right, what's our 3-year plan? You get into your 3-year plan, and that's how you start to build your company. Our goal when we started this company was to build a sport. And to build a sport, everybody plays by the same rules all over the world. So there's still a lot of work to do. Fucking bet against me. Bet against me. Tell me it's not going to happen. Tell me it's going to fail. I love it. I love every minute of it.